Today, it's my pleasure to be speaking with Rabbi Chaim of Chabad at ISU, and we're going to be talking about all things Judaism, and it's going to be a lot of fun and extremely educational, I'm sure. But before we kick things off, though, if you love this episode and you find it valuable, please give it a like and give it a share and subscribe to my channel on YouTube or like my page on Facebook. And hey, leave us a comment while you're at it because we'll be sure to read them all. And if you want to support this show, you can always throw a few bucks at us on Venmo to the username The Paul Garcia Show, or you can become a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia, where you'll get early access to each and every episode just like this one for as little as $1 a month. With that said, Rabbi Chaim, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it a lot.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. And what is a proper greeting in Jewish culture, I guess? How should I greet you, or how would you greet one of your Jewish brothers, I guess?
The greeting is Shalom Aleichem, which means peace upon you.
Okay.
And the person would respond, Aleichem HaShalom, upon you shall be peace.
Interesting. Now, I've heard plenty of Islamic people in the UFC, ironically, just that's where I hear them, they say Assalamu alaikum. That sounds very similar. Is it similar? Same?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same exact thing. One's in Arabic and one's in Hebrew.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about, what it means to be Jewish, because I hear the term Jewish thrown around all over the place for a culture, an ethnicity, a race, a religion. What does it mean actually to be Jewish?
That's a great question because, if you go to Wikipedia and you type in a Christian, it's a very clear, simple answer. Someone who believes in Christianity, pretty much. You type in Muslim, they'll have the same thing. Someone who believes in the religion of Islam. If you type in Jew in Wikipedia, you won't get a clear answer. They just go around in circles. A person who does something, there's no clear definition, which is fascinating because it's not a race. To be Jewish does not mean you're part of a specific race. You have all kinds of colors and races who are Jewish. It doesn't mean you're part of a certain culture because you have Jews who come from one part of the world with one culture and one part of the world with another culture. It's not necessary. To be Jewish doesn't mean you believe in Judaism even. A person can be someone who is born Jewish and they're as Jewish as Moses, but yet they don't follow the Jewish religion. They don't even believe in the Jewish religion. So to be Jewish and Judaism, interestingly enough, do not mean the same thing. Jewish means that you're born to a Jewish mother or converted according to Jewish law. And that makes you Jewish, so to speak, similar to a concept of a family. You're part of a family no matter what you do, no matter what you believe, no matter what you feel, no matter how you act. Now, Jewish people, the way God created the world and the way God set up, so to speak, and God being the creator, call it the manufacturer, he wrote an owner's manual. And for the Jewish people, he gave them a manual on how to live life to its best and how to fulfill their mission in this world, which is the Torah, the Bible, and Judaism. So Jews in order for a Jew to live the best life possible according to the way his creator their creator created them, would be to follow Judaism. Mm-hmm. But being a Jew or a Jewish food or a Jewish culture doesn't necessarily mean it's connected to Judaism.
Mm-hmm. I think I understand that. Okay, so I could be a Jew even if I don't believe or follow Judaism, like just as I'm a Garcia. That's my last name. I am a Garcia, and everyone who's born in this family is a Garcia. I could be born a Jew despite not following Judaism. Is that much correct?
100%.
Okay, got it.
And which means then you have a Garcia DNA. Mm-hmm. So it's not just so being a Jew is not just I was born into the family. It's the DNA. It's your DNA. It's the very core of who you are. You can live a certain way which is completely contrary to that DNA, but that's who you are. That's the core of your existence, the fact that you're a Jew. Right. So deep that nothing you can do can change that.
And that's the case for people that are born Jewish. It's so deep there's nothing they can do to change that. Does that give them any special obligations or responsibilities or, I don't know, character traits or anything? What does that mean if that is in you? What does that mean for you and how you're going to live your life or how you're supposed to?
Well, taking that analogy of a family, right? So you have certain DNA, and you have a DNA of the patriarchs. So the same concept is we have the Jewish nation as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, who are the patriarchs and matriarchs. And so our DNA all comes from that same DNA. And together with that, we received the Torah at Mount Sinai, where God gave the Torah through Moses to the Jewish people. And so, yes, God gave the Jewish people a mission and a roadmap how to fulfill that mission. So absolutely comes with tremendous privilege / responsibility. But again, regardless of if the person fulfills that responsibility or privilege, that doesn't take away if they're Jewish or not.
You said you literally have the DNA from these specific people that you named. Is that what makes someone Jewish, if they are descendants, technically speaking, of the people that you named? And maybe you could name them again, or maybe I just totally misunderstood what you said.
So I was talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you read about it in the beginning of the Bible, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Mm-hmm. And then you had Jacob had 12 children. 12 sons, the tribes of Israel, and the Jewish nation are all descendants of those 12 tribes. Now, it's not just about physical descendants and DNA, because if someone's mother is not Jewish, but their father is Jewish, so they have Jewish DNA, but they're not Jewish. Judaism goes through the mother. If someone was born to two non-Jewish parents and then converts according to Jewish law, then they get, so to speak, a Jewish soul. So the DNA may be, physical DNA may not be of the same as the Jewish person next to them, but they're just as Jewish as they are.
Really? Interesting.
Just as you could have a family who, when someone wants to join the family, so to speak, and take on the practices and the values and etc., what the family does, you can adopt. But when it comes to converting to Judaism, it's a lot deeper than that. It's not just adopting a last name. It's actually the makeup of the person spiritually changes.
Very interesting. Okay, so it's literally taking on a spiritual change, just as, medications can lead us to have a chemical change in our body, and maybe that's permanent. It's much the same when you convert to Judaism. It's taking on a spiritual change in your soul. And it sounds a lot like a lot of Christian denominations would say, when you get baptized, the Holy Spirit enters your soul type of thing. Is it along those same lines? But of course it's different, but is it the same idea that there is a spiritual change occurring when you do convert to Judaism?
Absolutely. I mean, when it's done properly, it's a process, and this is a process which has been going on since Mount Sinai, how a Jew can convert. It's not just, you can throw some holy water and say you're Jewish now, or you're not Jewish now. It's if a person goes through the proper process according to Jewish law, then absolutely, they're given a Jewish soul. Very
interesting. And you know what? To your point and to your credit, I've seen a lot of Christian denominations, it does look a little too simple. Even in my own Catholic faith, I've seen some baptisms look a little too casual, and it's like, man, you're skipping some steps here. You're not paying proper reverence, or you're not giving it the honor that it deserves. You're not going by the book, yada, yada, yada. What is the process of converting to Judaism? What does that look like when done properly? And maybe how can you get it wrong?
Well, there's a couple of basic concepts which have to happen. Being that today is a big world and everything is commercialized, so today you'd have to go through a proper court of law, and there's proper protocols, and in order to make sure that it's done properly. But the basic concept is that one has to accept upon themselves to fulfill all of the commandments, which we're obligated to do. If a person says that I'm only going to pick half of the commandments, then that's not a good conversion.
Right.
So the most basic is that a person has to, if it's a male, they have to go through a circumcision. There is what's called a dipping in the mikveh. Mikveh is a body of water where a person has to immerse themselves. And most importantly, as I said, is the acceptance of all of the commandments that the Jewish people are obligated, responsible to fulfill. And if any of those aren't there, if the accepting upon themselves the mitzvot is not done properly, then that questions the whole conversion.
Mm-hmm. Like it could render it null or
Absolutely.
Something, right?
Right.
Okay.
Or if someone doing the conversion, let's say there's the person, the rabbis or officers or whatever you want to call them, who are doing the conversion, if they themselves are not 100% Torah observant, completely following all the laws of the Torah, then that would render it not really a not valid conversion.
I see. And, you mentioned circumcision. Of course, people are going to be like, ooh, talk about that. So let's talk about that really quick. What was circumcision in the beginning? Was that the covenant, the sign of the covenant with Abraham? Like, hey, everyone that's going to be a part of this religion, every male is going to have to do this. And what is it? Why is it a thing? And how was it done? I know that's a lot of questions there, but.
So yes, the first Jew who was circumcised was Abraham. Abraham actually circumcised at 99 years old.
To himself?
Absolutely. The Torah says how actually the commentaries, the mystics say actually how God held his hand and helped him circumcise himself. Don't try that at home. But and then Isaac was the first Jew who was circumcised at 8 days old. And since then, the commandment is, and once the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, the commandment is for every Jewish male to be circumcised at 8 days old if they're healthy enough. If there's a problem with health, then it's delayed until they're healthy enough to be circumcised. And the idea is, yes, that it's like a connection, a covenant in the flesh between Jewish person and God, a connection which defies understanding and logic, because the child at 8 days old can't really make any decisions or decide anything on their own. So it's not like they decided to connect to God. Which would then mean that the connection is based on logic and understanding and limited by logic and understanding. Rather, this is a connection which is beyond understanding. It's an intrinsic connection between the Jew and God, not just a spiritual connection, but actually a physical connection, that there's a physical act done on the child, which is then bonds that child with God.
Very interesting. And, well, let's just spell it clearly. Circumcision is, and you just tell me because I really don't know. I mean, I assume it's when you cut off the foreskin at 8 days old, or later if they're not healthy enough at 8 days old. And how is that done? And actually, do you do that as a rabbi?
No. I know.
Oh, the YouTube video I watched was wrong then. I thought you did that to like all the people that, because I thought rabbis did that.
So there is actually, it's an art.
Okay.
Not everybody can do it. It's something which takes years of training. It's similar to a surgeon. Not every doctor's a surgeon. Mm-hmm. So there's someone called a mohel, and he's a ritual. He's knows how to do ritual circumcision, and I don't know more than that. I trust them. My brother actually is a mohel, and for my children here, he flew in, and I leave it all up to him. I just stand on the side and say, make sure you're doing it right. And as you said, you cut the foreskin, but exactly how it's done and thing, that's not something I know.
It's not like you have to use a certain type of blade.
Yes, everything. Yeah, there's many rules of how it's done and what the procedure is and etc. Mm-hmm. It's a certain kind of blade which is used and how it's done and where it's cut, and you can't use a certain kind of clamp because there has to be blood involved.
Oh, really?
But again, I'm not a mohel, so I can't tell you an awful much about that. But yes, it definitely is. It's not just you can say, oh, I'll go to the doctor and I'll have a circumcision, and that will be considered it'll be considered a circumcision of the removal of the foreskin, but will not be considered this covenant with God, this connection with God.
Right. And now, I mean, the majority of Americans anyway are circumcised, correct?
If you say so.
I think so. But Jews were doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, Jews were doing it before it was cool, absolutely.
Very interesting. Okay, you talked about the Torah very briefly. You mentioned it. What is the Torah, and is it something that Christians and Jews have in common?
The Torah is a word which is used for the 5 books of Moses, which is the Bible. Mm-hmm. 5 books of Moses. Torah actually is a Hebrew word which comes from the word lesson. Because everything, when we learn the Bible, is not just history. Rather, it's a lesson, in a practical lesson in our life. And when we learn something from the Torah, we have to make it practical and real. Otherwise, it wouldn't be told to us. There are many parts of our history which are not mentioned in the Torah because they're not applicable to our lives. So everything that is in the Torah, which is the Bible, the first 5 books of the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And that's the Torah. That's the written Torah. Then there's the prophets and the writings, and then there's hundreds of thousands of volumes of Torah, which is what is known as the oral Torah, although it's not oral anymore because it was written down, but that was given together with the written Torah. Moses explained a lot of the oral Torah together with the written Torah. So that was written down over generations, and you have thousands and thousands of books discussing Jewish laws, Jewish literature, Jewish values, etc., all based on the Torah. But that's like the base of it all. Mm-hmm. Take it as the Constitution, and then you have thousands and thousands of pages written as commentary. Some of it is commentary, which is later commentary, or some of it was actually given at the time, just given as an explanation, not written in the actual book.
Okay. Now, those 5 books you named, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, those are the first 5 books in the Christian Bible as well. Is your version of those books the exact same as Christian versions of those books? Like, are we reading the exact same words, roughly speaking?
Well, it was written in Hebrew. Mm-hmm. So is the translation the same? That I don't know. I've never read a Christian Bible. so I can't tell you. But the original Hebrew, I don't know if the Christian Bible has in Hebrew, if it's written in Hebrew or not. But there's the original Hebrew, and then there's translations. So I can't tell if it's exactly the same. It's definitely it's definitely same ideas, but it could be here and there different translations. I don't know.
When you read the Torah, is it in English or is it in Hebrew?
Hebrew.
Is it ever translated?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Are you supposed to read it in Hebrew or?
Well, if you can understand, there's learning the Torah on a regular basis, and that every person can understand it, whatever language they learned it. Then there is in synagogues every week when there's a minyan, when there's a quorum, we actually take out Torah scroll. The Torah scroll, which is a scroll written on parchment, handwritten by a scribe, ink on parchment, which has the entire 5 books of Moses in Hebrew, and it's read out in Hebrew.
Wow. Okay. Well, that reminds me of like in Catholicism up until recently, until the 70s, all the masses, they would always read the books in Latin, because it was at the Council of Rome in 382 that they established the first canon, all the Bible, all the books of the Bible, and it was all in Latin, I believe. And so they did all the masses in Latin because that was the mother language of these writings. So it would make sense that you would read those in Hebrew.
And most of the prayers in Judaism are in Hebrew. If someone can't read them in Hebrew, obviously God understands English, so you pray in English. But usually the cantor, etc., everything's led in Hebrew.
Got it. Now, let's back up just a little bit. I apologize. Like I said, I'm so curious and I'm learning a lot. But let's learn a little bit about you. I mean, you are the rabbi at Chabad at ISU. Tell us first, what is that? And then I want to learn a bit about where you come from. But first of all, what is Chabad at ISU?
So Chabad is a international organization, which is a Hasidic group of Jews. Jews were all over the world after the Second Temple was destroyed, so there was Jews in every part of the world, and this is a group from Russia, White Russia. It started off there 200 years ago, I believe.
White Russia, is that the name of the place actually? Or?
Well, the city. Now I think it's called Belarus, I believe,
or
just Russia now. Then it was called White Russia. It's a city called Lubavitch or Lubavici. And it's a group of Hasidic Jews based on a philosophy of Chabad, which is tremendously deep writings on Judaism and spirituality and godliness, etc. In the last generation or 2 generations, Chabad has branched out not only as a Hasidic group taking care of ourselves, but rather branched out to opening up our doors and being accessible to every Jew in the world to be able to practice their Judaism. There's Chabad centers in pretty much every place you look in the world, in all 50 states, in Muslim countries, in Eastern European countries. Chabad is in the news now big time because in Ukraine, there was over 152 centers in Ukraine, and Chabad has been very active in taking out many Jews, many refugees, Jews and non-Jews, out of the Ukraine. So they have centers all over the world, and our job and mission is to make Judaism accessible to every Jew who wants.
Wow.
So also pretty much every college campus in America and slowly but surely in the world, in Europe and in Russia and South America, college campus has a Chabad center, which our mission is to be a home for every Jewish student. And that Judaism should be accessible. Every Jew should be able to practice their religion, explore their religion, get in touch with who they are. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's beautiful. And what's it like for college students a lot of the time who are Jewish coming to a college like Illinois State University? Is it uncomfortable? Are they happy to find this home for them?
Many are extremely happy because there are colleges around that have a big Jewish population. Our college does not have a tremendously large Jewish population. I'd say we're between 3 and 5% of the school. So Jewish students can feel very marginalized and very alone. So they're very excited to find a place where they can thrive as a community. And we have a great Jewish community here on campus, and we have a great group of students, and it keeps on growing. So yeah, they're very happy and excited to be able to feel at home, eat the Jewish food they're used to, learn about Judaism, grow in their Judaism, and grow to be better Jews, better people.
That's wonderful. And I have a lot more questions, of course, but we got to take a quick break and say thank you to one of our beloved sponsors. That's Fairbury Furniture in Fairbury, Illinois, Central Illinois' premier furniture store. So here is a word from them. Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' premier furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. Also inside Fairbury Furniture is the popular WC Market, a beloved shop that offers an ever-changing selection of unique gifts and fashionable home decor. So make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture.
Come on down to Fairbury Furniture, where the furniture rocks.
All right, that was Fairbury Furniture in Fairbury, Illinois, a wonderful furniture store. Love that place. And we were just talking about, Chabad at ISU and, what that's like for these students. But I'm curious to learn more about where you come from. How did you find yourself in this position and start from the beginning?
Start from the beginning. So I was born in London, England. My parents are Chabad. Were actually emissaries, Chabad emissaries sent by the Rebbe, the leader of Chabad, in 1973 to London. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, were sent by the Rebbe in 1959 to Melbourne, Australia, for Chabad there. So I'm in the Chabad as a Chabad rabbi. We've been there for a couple of years. I grew up in London. Went to Jewish school there. After my bar mitzvah, 13 and a half, I went to Israel to study in yeshiva there, in Talmudic seminary or religious school. Studied there for 4 years in different schools in Israel. Then I went to study in New York for 2 years. Then I went back to Israel for another year. And then I went back to New York and got my rabbinical degree.
Your what degree?
Rabbinical degree. Got married. And then after a year of studying, we moved to Skokie, Illinois. And we were working there with the Chabad. They were running their youth program for a couple of years. And then the regional director of Chabad, Rabbi Meir Moskowitz, mentioned ISU. And he said, we're looking for a couple to move down there and open a Chabad center there. I said, sure, let's go. Let's do it.
Wow. And now, may I ask, how old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, man, so it seemed like a lot of stuff was happening pretty quickly in your life. Like, you went to this 4-year school after your bar mitzvah. Was that when you were 13?
Yeah, so 13 and a half, pretty much I went, that's around then, yeah.
Okay, now, it's a bit of a stereotype, so you just smash it if it's wrong. But it seems like in Jewish culture, like, they do not pride themselves, but education is of high importance. And it seems like the youth take on a lot of responsibility sometimes. And hearing you, right after, those 4 years, you must have been 17 and you went all the way to the United States to do more education in New York. Is this stereotype true at all?
Absolutely. Education is one of the most important thing in Judaism.
The most? Okay.
Well, in order for there to be a Jewish nation, you have to have education. What's actually interesting is that the Medrash, which is a homiletical part of the Torah, tells us that when God came to give the Torah to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, he asked for guarantors. Who's going to make sure that this will be kept for eternity? And, the Jewish people said, we have the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He said, it doesn't count for that. We have the rabbis. Went back and forth. And finally said, our children will be our guarantors. So God said, if the children will be guarantors, I'm happy to give the Torah. So youth is the future. So education is absolutely the most important thing in Judaism. There's actually laws that a synagogue or a Torah scroll can never be sold because it's a holy object. You can't sell it for different purposes. For the purpose of education, it may be sold. It's so important for education. So absolutely, in Judaism, education is front and foremost, 100%. Mm-hmm.
And of course, the other stereotype that I don't hear quite as often, but it's like, that Jewish people are good with money. I'm sure this isn't, you've heard this type of thing plenty of times. Statistically, Jewish people do fare rather well in the world when it comes to, their financial endeavors and their financial stability and whatnot. Would you say that's a product of their education? And is that a thing that you take pride in?
Well, it absolutely depends. If someone is using their money for good things, then it's something to take pride in. If someone is not, that each person has their own free will to decide what they're doing with their money. But it is, being that education is very important, and especially the Talmud, which is the Jewish not law, but it discusses Jewish laws and comes from Jewish law, and it's very back and forth discussions and questions and answers. So definitely can give someone a business mind. A person can. There's many people who have never gone to business school but have studied Talmud for many years and are doing very well in business, and they will attribute it to their success. They will attribute their success to Talmud. I never went into business, so I can't tell you if it works. But
that's very interesting.
in general, I think when someone is educated well and pushed to succeed and pushed and need to, for many generations, the Jewish people were the underdog in the countries they lived in. So they
I want to ask about that. It's incredible.
They have to prove themselves, and when you have to prove yourself, so obviously you'll be and when you have to prove yourself, and when as a child you're educated, and your mother, there's a song which Jewish mothers would sing to their children about education, about studying the Torah, and Torah is the best thing in the world. So Jewish children are filled with this concept of learning and studying and education. So automatically, when it comes into the real world, it usually translates that they work hard, hopefully honestly, and are successful.
Understood. Now, you said that a lot of the times Jewish people will have some success in business because they understand so well the principles, I would say, laid out in the Talmud. Now,
I don't know if it's the principles in the Talmud. It would be more like business mind, because the Talmud talks about many laws, about monetary laws and back and forth, and it definitely is, besides the fact that it's spiritually a holy book and godly, it also is very good for the mind, very mind stimulating.
So what about it do you think leads to this success in business? First of all, what is the Talmud? It's not the Torah. Is it like some dialogue?
So yes, the Torah was the actual written law. Mm-hmm. Right? Together with the written law, take it as when you go to university, when you go to a class. So the teacher can be talking for 3 hours, and students will be taking notes, right? So even if a person takes great notes, they don't write down everything the teacher said. It's just notes. So in the same vein, the actual Torah is, so to speak, notes of what Moses taught the Jewish people. Not everything was written down. A lot of it was given over orally. Mm-hmm. And that remained for quite a couple of generations, until the rabbis felt, especially Rabbi Yehuda, his name was Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, felt that it was being forgotten. So he committed it to writing, but at that point he just committed very short, laws, like in a very short way, called the Mishnah. After that, generations later, when people were learning less and there was more trouble, so to speak, in the world, and people had no time to sit and study and delve, so they actually transmitted more to writing, which is the next stage is the Talmud. The Talmud is basically a transcript of a large yeshiva, a large school, or different schools of rabbis sitting down discussing a law. And it would say, this law, okay, where does it come from? Where do we see this in the Bible? And it says, it comes from this verse.
Apologetics, right? Is that what these are?
No, it was more like just studying where it comes from and then trying to, is this the right way to do it? Is this the right way to do it? Arguments. This person brings a proof from another verse. This person brings another proof from another verse. It was deep discussions and dialogue between the rabbis, which then would come into a final decision. So what is the actual law? That's a large chunk of the Talmud is that. And together with that, it was a dialogue and discussions. So they bring down stories and bring down different lessons we learned from this part or from that part, etc.
Wow.
And then on that, there's countless commentaries. So when I say countless, probably hundreds of thousands of commentaries on the Talmud.
Wow. So this must be a massive book, the Talmud.
So the Talmud itself is there are 60 tractates. It's a 30-40 volume. Depends how it's split up. If each tractate its own volume, they have it now actually translated into English. I think total it's about 40 volumes or something like that.
Okay, so what do you think that is in pages total?
That's a question for Google.
You know what? I'm gonna look it up. But while I look this up really quick, I want to ask you. So, let's see here. You said that when a teacher talks to the student doesn't write down every single word verbatim. They just, they take notes. Did you say that that's what Moses did with God? Is God said all these things, he didn't write it all down word for word, but it was mostly notes and summaries? Did I understand that correctly?
So more like when Moses gave it over to the Jewish people, he gave them the notes from what God had told him, but he also explained it at much greater length. So the Torah itself is obviously the word of God. written by Moses. But there is much more which Moses gave together with it, which was handed down together with the written law.
Okay, I see.
We got, and how many words of Talmud we got?
Let's see here. How many words in the Talmud? I am looking
pages, sorry.
I had pages, but I feel like that could vary based on, text size and stuff. How many words are in the Babylonian Talmud? Is that the right one?
There's a Talmud which was written in Babylonia, and the Talmud which is the main, not main, it's the Talmud which is mostly learned, and then you have the Talmud which is written in Jerusalem. Yeah, so that's right. There's a set of Talmud.
My goodness. Have you read a decent amount of the pages in there?
Not enough.
Okay, so you kind of average 26 words on a line. An average of 80 lines on a page in a manuscript was 990 pages long. Is that one book? For a grand total of 2,059,200 words.
Look at that.
Wow. That's a lot of words. And hey, let me just see what apologetics means here. A branch of theology devoted to the defense of the divine origin and authority of Christianity.
No,
would
that would not have nothing to do with the Talmud.
No, but it sounds like they were discussing, like, hey, what do we believe? It's like they're talking about
No, it's not.
doctrine.
What do we believe? We know is, for example, the law is on Shabbat, on the Sabbath, when it's not supposed to do a certain amount of work. So this is the law. This was received. This is what we got. Now let's try and see if we can track it down. Where does it say it in the Talmud? Where does it say it in the Torah? In the Bible? And then they say, 1 second, we have another verse which says something else. So how do we reconcile these two verses? And then they discuss that. Well, this means this and this means this. There's also a system of rules, so to speak, and how you can translate, explain and expound on different verses. So it's all based on these laws and how on these, in any field you have certain laws how you can work around that law. In physics, there's laws of physics how you can do certain things, which you can say, well, it doesn't work according to the laws. It's not going to work. So there's rules on how you can expound on Torah and how you can explain it. So it wasn't like coming from a place of doubt. Now we have to prove it. It was more like just how do we do it and where do we see it from? Not coming from a place of doubt, but coming from a place from exploring knowledge and getting to the bottom of it.
Understood. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Because questions that come from doubt usually don't really look for answers. They're usually answers to why a person doesn't want to do something.
Say that again.
Many people use questions as answers. Why didn't you do that? Oh, I would do that, but I have all these questions. So you don't have those questions. You have those answers. It's an answer why you're not doing it. Then you found questions to back up why you're not doing something. Questions because you want to learn. Those are the best questions ever. Those are the questions you need all the time. Without questions, without questioning and digging further, you'll never grow.
Right. Have you ever questioned your faith or the existence of God in general?
No.
Well, have you questioned it but then not lost your faith? Maybe surely you've had to wonder, like, is God real? Yeah, he is. You have to wonder, right? Or you have to have had wondered.
Today, in today's world, to be an atheist is a lot more blind faith than to believe in God.
No. To get my own opinion in there, I think you're completely right.
If you look at the world and with every billions of atoms all working together, if you want to say that happened because some gases blew up, that's a lot more blind faith than saying that there's a creator behind it. So no, I can't say I question my faith.
Mathematically,
not that questioning faith is a bad thing.
Right.
It's definitely, if a person has questions, a person can definitely delve into it deeper, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But no, I can't say I have.
I remember reading a page in a book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and it kind of put into a mathematical perspective. Have you heard of this book?
No.
Well, it talked about the numbers behind the odds of everything happening, all of humanity existing in the way that it does, in the nature that it does. For that to happen by chance would exceed all fathomable probabilities. Like it's more than unlikely. It's impossible. It's more likely for us to be shot out of a cannon for anywhere from 1 second to 100 light years and land by chance upon the single atom in the universe and just be like, wow, I landed on that one atom of all the atoms in the universe. Like the chances of that happening are better than this happening. And that alone is very interesting. I've dove down the rabbit hole for, evidence of God, and as many people way smarter than me, and I agree with you completely. Like it or not, too. It's like chances are, God exists, and I firmly believe that. There's much more evidence for God's existence than there is for his non-existence.
Right. Now that doesn't mean that a person can't question why do things happen, or be upset or sad that things are happening, and frustrated. It's not a negative thing necessarily, as long as it doesn't lead to anything negative.
Right. I mean, Israel means roughly, well, it means to struggle with God or to wrestle with God in some translations. And I believe that's what life really is. You know, difficult things happen. You wonder why. I feel like our relationship with God is more of a wrestling match than a dance, you know, because he is how he is and he exists, and it's not really, we can't manipulate him. So we're just trying to figure out how to deal with the things, and we ask questions, we try to understand them more, and it's a real struggle. Like, struggle's the right word.
Yeah.
You think,
or instead of struggling with God, struggle with, if I'm in a certain situation, why am I in this situation? What can I grow from it? What can I learn from it? How can I become a better person?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And trying to understand what God would
Because
like
trying
for
to
you to
understand why God is doing certain things is like, you know, God is the creator and we're the creation. There's no way creation is going to understand the creator.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely.
We can try and understand what am I supposed to do now? What's my mission right now that I'm in this situation?
Now,
you'll probably get a lot better answers than trying to understand why God did things.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's beyond our human reasoning it's beyond our comprehension and our scope to understand why.
And it's pointless.
Yeah.
Because what does it help you understand why?
Right.
Understand what? What should I do now? That's A, in our scope, and B, it's actually helpful. To understand why is not really going to get us anywhere.
Well put. Now, you've spoken about rules and laws quite a bit. How many rules and laws are there in Judaism? I know in Christianity we have the 10 Commandments. Do you have the 10 Commandments, and what other laws might you have?
Well, the 10 Commandments is a Jewish concept.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure.
It's a Jewish concept. The 10 Commandments are general concepts, very general commandments. There are in total 613 commandments. Judaism is not just a religion that a Jewish person is a Jewish person and he's living his or her life, and then also he has Judaism part of that life. Judaism is a Jew and Judaism are one thing. So Judaism is something which encompasses the entire day of a Jew, entire life of a Jew. And a Jew wakes up, he has a way how he wakes up, how he goes to sleep, how he eats his food, what food he eats, how he puts his clothes on, every single part of it. It's not just it's God is telling you this is your manual for life. So just like when you have a manual for a computer, you're not going to say, I'll use the computer the way I want it, and then 3 hours a day I'll use it according to the manual. Manual is how to use this entire computer the entire time. So it's not just that Jews then practice Judaism, but it's very much, or what laws do I have right now that I have to do in my life? Like, I have my own person, I have my own reasoning, I have my own whatever I'm doing, and I'll also incorporate what God wants of me. It's more like God has a mission and put you on this world. So now your entire life revolves around that mission.
One thing I really respect about Judaism, at least the Judaism that you seem to be a part of, I know there's different sects, and I'll ask you about that here in just a second, but it's the piety, it's the reverence, it's one's devotion of their entire life to the structure of Judaism. And it's really impressive and it's really inspiring, actually. And you just don't see that quite as much in Christianity, at least from what I see. Of course, there's exceptions to that. There's people that are very serious. There's priests. I know priests are extremely devout and pious and everything else, but
the idea is you want a person should always focus on what's my mission today in this world. Mm-hmm. Why was I put here? And not just in this world or in every situation. What is my purpose right now in this situation? What would God want me to do right now? Why am I here? If we believe that God created the world and runs the world, and nothing's by chance, that means that if I'm here at this certain time, that means there's a reason why I'm here. Mm-hmm. And when you focus on that, no matter what religion you belong to, and say, why did God put me here, and how do I fulfill that, and how do I do the best I could do, then your entire day and your entire life is a more godly life. It's more in sync with our purpose in this world, and it's in sync with our Creator, and brings out the best in who we are.
Now, what are some of the day-to-day differences between a Jew and the general public, that philosophy of what does God want me to do in every aspect of my life, how does that manifest in interesting ways? Like, what does that lead Jews to do in their day-to-day lives that looks different from the general public? You said it affects how they wake up, how they go to sleep. Could you tell us just a few things that people like me might find interesting?
According to Jewish law tradition, we pray 3 times a day. We wake up in the morning, we say a prayer to God, which is not necessarily a Jewish prayer. It's a beautiful prayer which says, I thank you, God. I give thanks to God, the King of the world, the King of the everlasting King, who returned my soul to me. Which automatically, when you wake up in the morning and you say that prayer, so your focus is that I was given this day as a gift. God put me on this world with a mission today, because God, when we went to sleep, so to speak, our soul went up back to where it came from, and God sends us back our soul. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you have that first thought is that God returned my soul to me and God put me on this world, so your day's a different day, because I'm here because God decided that I need to be here today. And then, so that changes the whole outlook of your day. You either wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, it's late and I'm tired and I want to go back to sleep and I'm not to do today and I'm just going to lie in bed and drink coffee and binge watch," or you could say, "Wow, God put me on this world because God needs me on this world for some reason, and God wants me in this world, and I have something to give to this world." And there may be, I think we're close to 8 billion people. But me waking up in the morning is God's way of saying that, 8 billion people is not enough. I need you here. So that's a great way to start the day. And then we also have morning prayers. Jewish men over the age of 13 wear something called tefillin, which in English for some reason is translated as phylacteries. Okay. That doesn't help anybody by saying phylacteries. Tefillin are, if you ever read in Deuteronomy, the Shema prayer, which is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one," and it says you should bind them on your arms and put them between your eyes. And tefillin are, I actually have a pair right here.
Can you get them out?
Absolutely.
Oh, let's do it.
Tefillin are so this is just a box.
Oh, that box isn't a part of the thing, actually?
No, this is the tefillin right here. These are made out of leather. And as you can see here, the camera can see in here, this is sewn together. But if you'd open this up.
I'll zoom in a little bit.
Right. If you'd open this up right here, in this box right here, there are scrolls, which are written parts of the Bible in it.
Wow. Just crammed in there.
Well, rolled up nicely.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a pair of tefillin which we put on our heart. Not a pair of tefillin, one tefillin we would put on our arm across the heart. One tefillin, and second, the head tefillin, which has 4 compartments, which has 4 different scrolls folded up in each different compartment right here.
And how long are those scrolls? Like, how is that, like a whole book's worth? Or?
No. It's one couple of verses.
Wow. And now you drape this over yourself. That's what all these leather straps are for.
You wrap. So basically, the idea is that it says in the Torah to bind them on your arm and put them between your head. We bind them on our arm across the heart because, so to speak, to refocus our heart. And we put it on our head to refocus our head. Us human beings have tendencies our heart to go all different interesting places with desires, etc., and our head and our mind to go all different interesting places. So the idea is that we bind it on our arm across our heart, but it's not enough that it stays in our heart. So then we wrap it all the way down our arm, which goes till the actual hand, which represents action, because it's not enough to have your heart refocused. It has to actually translate into action. And the same thing is that we put it on their head, but the straps go all the way down, because it's not enough that we understand what we got to do, but it actually has to be manifest in the rest of our body that we actually act accordingly. So that's the thing that Jews do typically in the morning, but it can be done all day till sunset. Jews over 13, males over 13 put on tefillin every day.
How long does this process take?
So most Jews would put on tefillin for the morning services, which if it's done in synagogue can take anywhere between 35 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, or just do it at home. But the actual commandment is just to put on the tefillin and say one verse or one chapter, which can take 2 minutes.
Got it. Well, this is extremely interesting. Thank you for taking that out. We have to give a quick thank you to another local sponsor, and that is Ultra Physical Therapy in Lexington, Illinois. These guys are great. I have a lot of incredible questions, if I do say so myself, coming up for you. Stay tuned. It's going to be juicy. But here's a quick word from Lexington's Ultra Physical Therapy. Newsflash, no one likes being injured or being in pain. And if you're suffering from joint or muscle pain or recovering from a sports injury or a recent surgery, Ultra Physical Therapy in downtown Lexington, Illinois is here to help. They are a locally owned physical therapy company that can treat everyone from the star cheerleader to the farmer getting ready for harvest, to the professional office worker, to the grandmother who wants to be able to play with her grandchildren. The therapists at Ultra Physical Therapy have a combined 25 years of experience and are trained in cutting-edge interventions, including dry needling, blood flow restriction training, cupping, and the use of massage and joint manipulation. They are also skilled in developing exercise and rehabilitation programs to get you back to doing all the things that you love to do. So free yourself from those aches and pains that are slowing you down and give them a call at 309-365-2500 to schedule an appointment or just to ask questions.
Come to Ultra Physical Therapy in Lexington, and we'll keep you moving.
All right. That was Ultra Physical Therapy in Lexington, Illinois. Great place. They'll get you feeling better if you're an athlete, if you're an old person, doesn't matter. They'll help you feel better after surgery, even get you ready for surgery, interestingly, but great place there, Ultra Physical Therapy in Lexington, Illinois. Now, we were just talking about, remind me of the term for what was in that bag again.
Tefillin.
Tefillin. Okay.
Again, it's translated in English for some reason as phylacteries, but I don't know anybody who knows what the word phylacteries means, so we'll just stick to tefillin.
Mm-hmm. And I have a few questions about, just some different practices, and then I have some more questions. I got plenty of questions here, but right off the bat, you're wearing a kippah or a yarmulke, correct?
Good.
What is that for?
That would be, it started off as a custom many years ago, a couple hundred years ago, 1,000 years ago, but then it became like part of the law, so to speak, because in Judaism, when a custom is kept by all Jews, it becomes law. And that is to remind us that there's always someone above. Always someone above watching, etc.
Now,
yarmulke actually is a word which is made up of two words, which is yare malka, fear of the king. It was, so to speak, a expression of a fear of God. If you'd like it, the same idea as a wedding ring, so to speak.
Okay.
Like, a person has a wedding ring that, to always remind them that they're connected to somebody else.
And now
Similar to that idea, I guess.
I thought it was like, you had to keep your head covered in the presence of God, and Hasidic Jews and Orthodox Jews believe they're always in the presence of God, and so that's why they covered their head. And I know Catholics they wear veils. Women wear veils for somewhat of the same reasons. Is that not the case? So it's not because you believe you're supposed to cover your head in the presence of God?
Cover your head because as a sign of reverence, as a sign to always remind. Why is it a sign of reverence? Because we're reminding us. Why does it help? What's the connection? The connection between covering our head and reverence is because we're reminding ourselves that we're constantly someone above us. Something above us.
How does your yarmulke? Is it both kippah, yarmulke, same thing?
Couple, yeah.
Okay.
All different things. It's all the same thing.
How do they stay on so well? Is there?
I've been asked that question. I don't know. Just sits in your head. It's made for It's made to sit in your head.
Can you like tilt your head forward to show the camera? What it looks like. See if it. It's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Do you have to shave your head?
Do I have to shave my head? I have no hair.
Okay.
No, you absolutely don't have to shave your head. I mean, my kids all wear it. They have nice, normal hair. I just don't have hair. But no, absolutely not. If you have extremely long hair, then you need a real big yarmulke to keep it down. But otherwise, it sits just fine.
It doesn't have to be a big. It doesn't have to be a certain size.
It has to be visible, so to speak. I think the rule is that it has to be able to see you're wearing a kippah. If it's a tiny little thing that someone's looking from one side, you can't see it. That's a bit of a problem. But but I'm saying it sits just fine.
And it can't just be a hat. You can't
be
wear
anything.
So you could wear a hat right now, and it'd be the same thing.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, there's nothing like intrinsically holy about the kippah. It's about a head covering. Oh. So if I want to wear a baseball cap all day, all night, I can do that too.
And you don't have to wear that kippah underneath a hat or anything.
No.
Well, why'd you wear it underneath
So there is a, and this is more of a mystical, Kabbalistic reason that when people pray, and say they wear two hats. But that's not like the basic law. One hat's enough for prayers and for certain things. There is a concept to wear two hats which surround us, and that's a whole different discussion. It's more of a Kabbalistic reason.
So if I were a Hasidic Jew, a practicing Jew, I could just wear a hat all day and it would be fine.
Yeah, if you were a Hasidic Jew, you'd wear 2 head coverings for prayers. So even though you're wearing it, but regularly you could, yeah.
But I could wear 2 baseball caps?
Sure.
Interesting. Okay, and do you wear it when you go to sleep?
Yes. Not everyone does. Hasidic Jews typically we wear it when we sleep too.
It seems like Hasidic Jews are Hasidic Jews, I think, they're like the real deal, more conservative, more traditional. Is that fair to say? The conservative ones? Of all the sects, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the different sects.
Everyone tries to do their best. I don't know if one's more. You can be different communities have different customs, and everyone's into their customs, so to speak. Everyone does the core Judaism. Everyone does the same, but it's more customs which are a little different. So you have certain Hasidic Jews who aren't as devout, and you have other Jews who are not. So the Hasidic Jews, one of the principles of Hasidic Judaism, of the Hasidic group, is to bring joy and life into not just doing things because we're supposed to and because we need to, rather doing it with excitement, with passion, with love.
Mm-hmm. And what are the different sects of Judaism? The big ones, anyway.
So Moses came and gave us the Torah, and then there was the Jewish people, and there was 12 tribes. Jacob had 12 sons, which split up to 12 tribes. Mm-hmm. Joseph's 2, and each tribe had their leader. Moses was the leader of all of them, and they each served God in their way. Obviously, the basic commandments are all the same, and everything is the real things. But then there's a way how, just in a relationship, you can have certain people who do different things to make the relationship more beautiful and more exciting and more special. So obviously the same. So, and each of these 12 tribes had their own way of not serving God, because excuse me, everyone was serving God, but their own way of beautifying their service of God. Mm-hmm. And there was always different groups, and then over the years, when Jews went to different countries, a lot of times the rabbis said, "We'll take on this different custom," which is not written in the Torah, and it's not part of the actual law, but it's just a custom to beautify the religion and to show how much we love our relationship with God, etc. So that's how the different groups took on different customs. Again, we're talking about groups of Jews who the base is all the same, still keeping the 613 commandments and still fulfilling the commandments of the Torah, but just different ways of different dialects of prayer. For example, different dialects of reading Hebrew. Different people who came from different countries read Hebrew differently. There's the Sephardic pronunciation, which is from Middle Eastern / Spain, that area. Then you have the Eastern European, the Ashkenazic. But that's really all just beyond the basics. There are other things that were added on here and there.
Okay. Well, now, today, though, what are the different names that I might see on the sign in front of synagogues? You know, there's the First Baptist Church, the First Catholic Church, or not the First Catholic, the Catholic Church, First Baptist Church, Methodist, you know, all these different things. There's Orthodox Jewish synagogues, there's Hasidic Jewish synagogues, there's got to be, you know, the Reformed Jewish synagogues, like there's one here in town in Bloomington. What are the main different names of these different sects? So there are.
I can really only speak about Orthodox Classic Judaism because that's all I know. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it'd be fair.
But what exists?
So there's Reform Judaism. So basically, there was this is all started about 200-300 years ago. Over the generations, there were different groups of Jews who decided they wanted to start their own little version of a religion.
Right, just like the Protestant Judaism. Reformation.
Usually, it didn't last more than a couple of generations. So about I think it's 200 years ago or a little less, there was different groups in Europe who decided they wanted to change around certain things. Again, I can't tell you much about them and about their theology, and so I never studied it. But there are those who call themselves Reform Judaism, and there's Conservative Judaism, and there's Reconstructionist Judaism, and it's all kind of. But again, I can't tell you much about them because I never studied them.
Are the core beliefs roughly the same, though? Would you say?
I don't know.
Okay. What are the core beliefs? Like maybe just, we were talking about the definition of what it means to be Jewish. What's like, at the end of the day, if you had like 1 or 2 sentences to say what at least your branch of Judaism is, what is it? If you're talking about Christians, it's someone who believes that Christ is the Son of God and was God himself in the Trinity and stuff like that. There's some Christian denominations that don't believe in the Trinity in the same way as the majority of Christian religions, but what's the core pillar things of Judaism, beliefs?
Core beliefs are, we believe in one God.
So monotheistic.
One God. We believe God created everything and creates everything, and there's no other being that has power besides God. We believe that God gave the Jewish people the Torah, and the Torah and every word of the Torah is from God. And we believe that the Torah is everlasting, it doesn't change. Pretty much everything comes from that. Once you have that, you pretty much have everything.
Got it.
We also believe that the world is created with a purpose, and that purpose is the Messianic times, which talks about in the Jewish in the Jewish Bible about the Mashiach, the Messiah coming, and when the entire world will recognize its true existence. Right now, the world seems to be very fragmented and very separate, and we don't see one common bond between every single thing that happens in the world. You have work, you have business, you have work, you have their own personal life has so many different aspects, and the world too. You have different countries, you have everything seems fragmented and separate. But once the Mashiach will come, the Messianic era, all of a sudden the lights will be turned on, and it'll be right now when you walk out in the street, you don't necessarily recognize that God creates everything and is running everything. Sometimes you look in the street, it doesn't exactly seem like God is okay with what's going on, or that it's done. God is running the show. When Mashiach will come, so to speak, the lights will be turned on. And we'll realize the true purpose of creation and how every single part of creation is really part of this oneness of God, of expression of God's oneness. Mm-hmm. Like when you see a thousand-piece puzzle, you just see a bunch of 1,000 pieces. But then when you see when someone puts the puzzle together, all of a sudden you realize how the piece with the hole over there and the scrap of it actually works just fine together. And when you see them separately, they seem completely different and even against each other. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, when you see the puzzle, now you get it.
Right. Yeah. And it's like alone they seem useless. Alone they seem like they don't have a greater purpose. But once they work as they should in harmony, which is they are acting as they should, that's when it becomes beautiful and the evidence of God becomes more clear. And it's so strange to me. I've thought long and hard about this, and it blows me away. It's like everything in the world, it exists in such a way, and it could exist in relationship to other things, other aspects of reality in a better way, and they would be in better harmony, and in a better way yet, and be in more harmony until they're just at maximum harmony. And what does it mean to be more in harmony? It means it's something is closer. These different parts are closer in their relationship to one another, to as they should be. How do I say that? Like different aspects of reality are
fulfilling
acting
the purpose of their creation.
Exactly, yes, and they're closer to maximum harmony. And what's maximum harmony? Well, you could argue that that's God or that's heaven. And what's maximum chaos? Well, you could argue that's Satan. And I mean, the etymology of the word diablo, diabolos is to scatter, for devil, and Satan's the accuser and all this good stuff. And it's just interesting because, it seems like, I guess I want to ask.
Well, in Judaism, it's interesting, being that there's only one God and there's no other being that has power. So there is no God and Satan.
Okay.
God created Satan for a purpose.
I see.
Because God is everything and is the power behind everything, and there's no one else that has no other existence has power. Okay. And therefore God wants us to have free choice in order to get rewarded. Mm-hmm. And therefore God creates struggles and seemingly Satan's, as you just called it, but that's all part of God's plan. Because everything in this world is all part of God's plan. And that's what's going to happen when the prophets tell us when the Mashiach comes, the wolf will lie with the lamb. Why would the wolf lie? They're not going to change all of a sudden. Rather, the wolf is going to realize their purpose in creation, and the lamb will realize their purpose in creation, and there'll be complete harmony. Because there's only friction when people don't realize that they each have a part. Most frictions start in a very, it's not simple as this, but to simplify things, friction starts when I feel that my existence is being bothered by you. And therefore I got to get rid of your existence, or I got to push you away. When you realize that I'm here for a purpose, and he's here for a purpose, and she's here for a purpose, and we can all work together, then that eliminates all friction.
Wonderful. That's very interesting and profound. Last commercial break right here. I'm going to ask you, we're talking about heaven, hell, Satan, living together in peace. I'm going to ask you about Jesus even in just a second. It's going to be very interesting. But first, here's a quick word from Dave's Supermarket in Fairbury, Illinois. You ever been to Dave's Supermarket or heard of it?
Nope.
Oh, man, you got to try it out. It's a great place. Everyone loves it. Dave's Supermarket right here. Since 1950, Dave's Supermarket in Fairbury has been wowing customers throughout central Illinois with their unmatched customer service, delectable deli market, beloved grocery carryout service, and many other fortes, which is why they've earned hundreds of 5-star reviews online. Dave's 3rd Street Deli has plenty of seating and is a destination place to meet your family and friends for good food, fun, and fellowship. Not only is their home-style fried chicken here the best around, but you can also enjoy free coffee and 50-cent ice cream every single day. And be sure to check out their Old World Bakery while you're here, where freshly baked goods are prepared every morning. You'll find hundreds of unique and signature items here at Dave's that you won't find anywhere else, like their famous potato salad, ham loaf, and canned meats, just to name a few. Dave's Supermarket is open Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and offers online shopping and curbside services. Come experience this revered location that puts the super in supermarket when you shop at Dave's in Fairbury, Illinois, wowing the customer for over 70 years. All right, that was Dave's Supermarket in Fairbury, Illinois. Delightful place, Dave's Supermarket. Love that place. Everyone loves it. Once you go there, you'll love it too. But we were just talking about, the lamb and laying with the wolf. I said lamb, right? Yeah, the lamb laying with the wolf. These are animals. This is meat. What does it mean to keep kosher?
Okay. Keep kosher is there's a couple of rules. When you see something says kosher in the store or has a kosher symbol, it doesn't necessarily mean it was blessed by a rabbi. Kosher does not mean blessed by a rabbi, as many people think. It rather means it's prepared in a specific way and it has specific ingredients in. So fruits and vegetables are all kosher. When it comes to, now, even fruits and vegetables, any kind of bug is not kosher. So when Jews, for example, eat lettuce, they'll check their lettuce. There should be no bugs on it. Because we don't actually eat lettuce. Fruits and vegetables, so if they have no bugs in it, it's interesting actually now, like strawberries right now, there's a big infestation of bugs in strawberries. So therefore, most rabbinical kosher organizations will say not to eat strawberries right now because there's an infestation. Then we have, when it comes to meat, so there are any animal which chews its cud and has split hooves is kosher.
Chews its cud means like cows, they'll chew grass, swallow it, spit it back up, chew it some more. So it looks like they're always chewing.
Mm-hmm. Cows, llamas, deers, pretty much, yeah. Most cattle.
If it chews cud, it's off limits.
No, it's kosher.
Oh.
If it chews its cud and has split hooves, it's kosher.
Oh, that means it's good to go.
Absolutely.
You can't eat it.
Right. It needs to be prepared in a certain way. So you can't just walk into a supermarket and say, oh, there's beef, I can eat it. It has to be killed in a certain way, slaughtered. There's a special religious slaughterer called a shochet, who is trained to slaughter it in a specific way, and a special knife has to be used, and it's a special process.
What makes it special exactly besides the knife?
There's so many laws. It has to be killed in a matter of a second or 2 or 3 seconds, and it has to be the knife has to be perfectly sharp. It's interesting, the responsibility of a shochet sometimes is greater than the responsibility of a rabbi, because the shochet is feeding people kosher, making sure it's kosher. So there's a tremendous amount of laws. Again, I'm not a shochet, so I can't tell you all of them, but there's a tremendous lot of laws. Now, once the animal is killed, blood is forbidden. So the actual animal is salted, and a whole system salted and then soaked in water and then salted again to drain all the blood out of the meat. Mm-hmm. The cow has to be completely healthy. So after the cow is slaughtered, it's then checked if it's healthy. The lungs are checked. For example, if there's a hole in the lung, then the whole animal is not kosher.
Man, okay.
There's a tremendous process going into. That's why you notice kosher meat can be sometimes double or even more the price of regular meat because of the tremendous process that it goes through. Fowl also, chicken is kosher, but again, it has to be slaughtered in a certain way and salted in a certain way, etc.
Wait, how's chicken kosher? It doesn't have hooves.
So it's not an animal. Doesn't show
Chicken?
it's a fowl. It's a bird.
Well, that's an animal.
Well, so a mammal, let's call it, has to chew its cud and have split hooves. A fowl, mainly there are certain the Torah lists. The Bible lists a bunch of fowl which are not kosher, and tradition has, and from that we have those, and anything which is not in that list, if it's traditionally been eaten by Jews and it has certain rules, then it is kosher. Again, if it's prepared a certain way. Fish needs to have fins and scales for it to be kosher.
Okay.
No
bass.
Bass is kosher. Bass has
I didn't know. I didn't think it had scales.
Yes, bass has fins and scales. Shrimp, lobster, and all that's not kosher.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Swordfish, etc. Catfish.
Oh, I meant catfish, not bass.
Catfish is not kosher.
Got it.
But any fish which has fins and scales, when it comes to fish, it does not have a specific way how it has to be killed.
Okay.
So anyone can go out and catch a salmon and cook it for dinner. No problem.
Mm-hmm. And I assume you can't eat pig, right? Because
Correct.
Pig doesn't chew
its cud. There you go, right there. That's pretty much when it comes to food.
Now, why? People are going to ask why. Why is this a law? Was it written? I've heard back in the day it might have been written because cooking things that weren't kosher was problematic or something. Like cooking pork is a little more difficult and could lead to a disease that cooking beef in the same way wouldn't lead to. Is that at all true? Is that baloney or why is this a law?
True, it's baloney. Well, there's actually a big discussion. There are certain laws in the Torah which are said that this law God did not give us the reason. Which actually makes a lot of sense, because the fact if God came up with a law, if we believe that laws are God-given and God is the creator, so the fact that we can understand some laws, that is shocking. Why would we be able to understand? How would the creation be able to understand the creator? But many laws, God gave us the reason. Many are the opinion that kosher is a law which God did not give us the reason. There are those who want to say that it was more healthy, etc. But at its core, there is no necessarily logical reason. There is some people have said, for example, predators are not kosher. Most predators are not kosher, which is because you are what you eat. And therefore, when you eat something, you take some of the characteristics of what you're eating and bring it into yourself. You wouldn't want to take negative character traits from predators or stuff like that to bring it into your body. But as a whole, it's one of the laws that was just given by God because that's what God decided.
I see. Okay, interesting.
And another very basic law is even if it's kosher meat and kosher milk, they're not allowed to be cooked together. So you'll never see something which is kosher, which is milk and meat together.
Why is that? Why is that a thing? Is that another thing you just don't know why? And
well, it's so the reason why it's not the reason why. The way it's written in the Torah originally is, again, as we said, it was notes. It was you should not cook a baby goat in its mother's milk. That was how it was written, but Moses explained that refers to any animal and any milk. So there are some people that wanted to say that it's because it's cruelty to take the mother's milk and cook the child in it. But that's just one opinion. The main opinion is that there is no logical reason for it, and that's what God said.
I've heard that, when it comes to the Old Testament laws, such as, it's forbidden to wear two different fabrics in a single garment or something like that, that it was a way to set apart the Jewish people from the rest of the world, these different things, just to set them apart because no one else was not wearing two different fabrics in a single garment. And that was just one of many different things they were doing in the many laws that you've talked about that were just setting them apart. These were God's chosen people, just like you go to a certain school, you wear a certain uniform type of thing. Have you ever heard of that?
So that would be a good reason, a basic reason, but it would be, so to speak, I won't say wrong, but it would be insufficient to say that the Almighty God, that's all he could come up with. That the only reason why I would give laws is because to make you different. There must be, that could be a very basic reason, a very basic understanding. But when we're talking about God, who's infinite and whose wisdom is infinite, obviously there's layers and layers and layers of deeper and deeper meaning. Some which were revealed to us and some which weren't.
Got it. Now, hey, let's talk about something very interesting. People are going to really wonder this. Jesus. What do you think about Jesus? What was that?
Nice Jewish boy.
Nice Jewish boy. Tell me what you think about Jesus, what he was, what's real, what's true, and all that.
So I'm not a historian, and I never studied it, so I can't tell you. I know there are different opinions of if the story, the narrative works one way or the other. I can't tell you much about it.
Do you believe he walked the earth, first of all? Do you think he was real?
There definitely was a person called, yeah, sure.
Jesus of Nazareth? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely possible.
Okay.
Did he have, what did he have spiritual godly powers? I don't know. It doesn't say anything in the Jewish literature about him having powers, etc.
What does...
And I've never studied Christianity, so I can't tell you.
Understood. Yeah, you're very dedicated to what you were studying and nothing else, it seems, because... Which
Absolutely.
is good, you know? You're master
Absolutely.
of one, for sure.
Exactly.
Well, so you said that Jewish literature doesn't speak to his divine powers. Assuming that you believe he did exist, and does some Jewish literature at least speak about Jesus? Like, do they acknowledge him?
There are certain parts of the Talmud which he was mentioned, and then the censor back in the 1700s or 1600s took it out, and then it was put back in. So we don't know exactly what was originally in there, what was taken out.
Oh, he was mentioned in the Talmud. I didn't know that.
So we're not sure if that's the Jesus of Nazareth, which the Christians believe in. If that's the one, I mean, there are some Jewish historians who have different opinions on it, and it seems that at that point it was a very common name. It seems so. I never studied it, but there are excuse me, there are like historians who have written extensively on it. But I couldn't tell you much. I would be wrong to start giving my opinion. I don't really know much about it.
Okay, I want to ask. Feel free to just say whatever you want to this, of course. But like, what do you believe about Jesus and his crucifixion and the resurrection? Do you, like, I've heard Ben Shapiro say he believed that Jesus was a rogue Jew, that was trying to rise to power and stuff. Do you believe that at all, or do you have any opinions on the matter?
I once wanted to delve into it historically from the Jewish perspective, but I never got around to it. So I can't really make an opinion when I don't really know the facts and the way Jewish looks at it. I know even amongst Jewish historians there's a debate if the Jesus it speaks about in the Talmud is the same Jesus, and if etc. So I don't really know much.
Understood. Okay.
It'd be wrong for me to give an opinion on something I don't know.
Bummer. Darn it. I was hoping you're gonna say something really interesting. A hot take, but you know what? Whatever. What do you believe though about? What do Jews believe about heaven and hell?
So Jews believe that the soul is eternal and the physical is not eternal. And once the soul leaves the physical, continues to live on in a spiritual sense, there is a certain cleansing process which the soul has to go through. Not, God forbid, just, for the sake of going to burn and suffer and we don't believe in terminal damnation and you're damned forever, but there is the concept of hell in Judaism is not a punishment, so to speak. It's more of a cleansing process. Now a cleansing process can be painful because you get caked in mud sometimes and it dries up and you got to take in the shower and you got to have really hot water and scrape your arm until it gets off. It can be painful, but it's a cleansing process. So that's the Jewish take on consequences after life. Not, God forbid, just if a soul is a Jewish soul is part of God, and the soul, everything was created by God, then why would God just want something to be destroyed and suffer forever? God wants everything to be perfected. Now, if a person comes down to the world with a mission, if a person not only doesn't fulfill the mission properly, but goes astray a little bit, so the soul needs to be cleansed. And that's what it's a cleansing process.
And then after the cleansing process is finished, it's eternity with God?
Or sent back down to this world to fulfill its mission. We do believe in reincarnation.
You do? I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Huh. And do you believe in something like, what is it? Samsara? Isn't that's like Buddhism reincarnation. I forget, what is it when you moksha? It's when you finally leave the cycle and then you're no longer in this reincarnation thing. Do you believe eventually there is something like heaven?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, even not every soul is reincarnated, and there are plenty of souls who fulfill their mission and go up and hang out with the boss. I've never been there, so I can't tell you what it's like.
Uh-huh.
But It's just the physical world. The Mishnah actually talks about the physical world is just a hallway, a foyer for the real thing. So we usually look at this is the real world, and then what happens afterwards? No, this isn't the real world. The soul existed before it came down here, and the soul can exist after.
It's so strange. In near-death experiences, people often describe the phenomena as being, they for a moment were truly in reality, and they're like, it's more real than anything I've experienced here on earth. And I think that's very interesting. And I don't know how the soul works. I don't know the metaphysics of it all, and I assume nor do you. But
correct.
That could definitely, I don't know if the soul, bounces back and forth or almost goes all the way type of thing, or if God lets that happen for a lesson to be learned.
As we said that right now, the world before the Mashiach, before the Messianic times, we don't see the world is not a world of truth. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense because we don't see the whole picture. We just see little fragmented things. We don't see the light. The light's not turned on, so to speak.
Right.
So it would make sense that a soul goes to heaven, all of a sudden sees it from, looking down, like, oh, now I see the whole picture. Mm-hmm. Now I get the back view, so to speak.
Now, you say Mashiach, that's the equivalent of Messiah to Christians. Why wasn't Jesus that, and what do you expect the Mashiach, to look like?
So Judaism talks about the Mashiach, and it talks about the world is going. It's not just it's a process the whole world is going to experience. The world will become a different world, as we just said. That the world is going to be, that Mashiach's job is to reveal the truth behind everything, the truth behind to pull down the curtains on this on the when you look around, you walk outside, you don't actually, there's no godly consciousness. You don't actually think there's a God in the world. If you speak to somebody and say, does this street or does this area or does this movement, is it going according to, do you think God would run this show? Oh, God, he doesn't come into this bar. Mm-hmm. But so right now, because, so to speak, the fact that God runs the world and is the boss is concealed. Mm-hmm. And the idea of the Messianic times, what Mashiach is going to reveal, how really take down that curtain and show how everything is part of God's plan, and and therefore the whole world will be in harmony.
He'll make it obvious.
Maimonides said, and once it'll be obvious, there'll be no more war, there'll be no more bloodshed, there'll be no more hunger, there'll be no more strife, because everyone's going to realize their place in creation, and everyone's going to realize that everyone's actually working together. That's the Jewish way of Mashiach. And we haven't been there yet, so obviously Mashiach hasn't come yet.
Mm-hmm. And what will he look like, though? Assuming it's a he, will it be a pure spirit? Will it be
it'll be
like
a physical human being
that'll walk among us?
Absolutely.
Okay, you can see how some people will immediately think of Jesus, like he fits that description a little bit.
But none of what was supposed to happen in Messianic times has happened yet.
Oh, okay. So what was supposed? Oh, that stuff
as we
you
just
said.
Explained. That's the Messianic times. So Mashiach has to usher in the Messianic era. We're not in we're actually very close to the Messianic era, as you said before. That this book about I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. 300 years ago, no one would put out such a book. See how slowly but surely the fact there's a God in the world and that everything is God is becoming more and more mainstream, so to speak, and it's becoming more and more evident that there is something behind it. I mean, cracking the DNA could all of a sudden show that there's something must be behind everything. Mm-hmm. So we definitely are getting closer and closer to this Messianic era, and we're almost there.
Does the Messianic era depend in part on humanity's ability to get close to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a bit of a say in
we
what
have
happens.
Not a bit of a say. We have everything matter to say. We're the ones who've been doing it. Absolutely. We spoke about Chabad. Mm-hmm. When I mentioned briefly the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the leader of Chabad. We need another hour and a half at least to speak about the Rebbe. But the Rebbe is the Moses for our generation, the leader of the Jewish people. And he taught us, and he pushed that we're very close to the Messianic era, and we're the ones who are going to bring it in. It's our job to start living, so to speak, in a Messianic mindset. Messianic mindset would mean that everything's in harmony and everyone works together and that God created everything. And we can start living our lives that way, and slowly but surely we are the ones who are going to bring the Mashiach, because it's not just it's a culmination according to Jewish tradition. Mashiach is not just a random thing which happens; it's a culmination of the work of the world. So we have a tremendous part by adding goodness and kindness into the world, and harmony, as you said before. That speeds in the Messianic era.
So the Messiah is waiting to come. It's just we have to give him the environment that he can actually come
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Okay. And so you obviously believe in free will and everything like that, because you believe it is up to us to make the decisions to create an environment that he could come to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
And Maimonides, medieval great Jewish philosopher and sage and scholar, and in one of his writings, he writes that the whole world is seemingly on an equal scale, and one good deed that a person does can tip the scale and bring salvation and goodness to the entire world. And he concludes that every person should, every moment of his life, feel that way. That their one act of goodness and kindness can tilt the scales.
Because it can. It literally can.
Absolutely.
The butterfly effect, you know? You go back in time, you kill a butterfly, it's going to have a profound impact later on. It's just, every decision.
And that just gives us what tremendous power every one of us has.
Oh, absolutely. We can be a massive force for good or bad, right? We can bring about.
Let's focus on being a massive force of good.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And one of the last topics I want to talk about is this, and I'll kind of read a note here, but so the Holocaust, right, was a genocide of the European Jews during World War II between 1941 and 45. In Nazi Germany and its collaborators systematically murdered some 6 million Jews across German-occupied Europe, which was around 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population. And if I understand correctly, a lot of those Jews fled back to their homeland of Israel during that time, but they were anything but warmly welcomed and are in a constant fight with neighboring Arab nations. And I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on the current situation in the Middle East, if that's something you really follow much. I know it's kind of geopolitical, but it's also theological.
It's not necessarily geopolitical, it's human lives at stake. Right. So historically, it's not exactly what you just wrote.
Correct me, please.
Not 100% accurate. Jewish people, they many of them tried to flee to Israel, but Israel, as a nation, as a sovereign nation called Israel, as you know, wasn't created yet. It was under the British at that point, so they weren't allowed in, many of them. But in a nutshell, the Jewish people have been living in Israel for the past 3,500 years. There's always been a Jewish presence in Israel. The Bible talks very clearly about how God gave the Jewish people, God gave Abraham Israel as inheritance for his children. Joshua conquered the land of Israel. So it's pretty clear, and if you look at history, the Jewish people belong to Israel. Israel belongs to the Jewish people. It was given to them as an everlasting inheritance by an everlasting God. And therefore, Jews can never be occupiers in their own land. You can't be an occupier in your own home. And it pretty much boils down to that. And there are those who, just as the Germans in the Holocaust, and just as the Spanish in the Inquisition, and just as the Romans in ancient Rome tried to kill out the Jewish people, there are those who are trying to do the same thing today. And just today, unfortunately, people like to look at the situation and try and decide things for their own without actually knowing the facts. And when you turn an aggressor into a victim, then you got problems.
The aggressor and the victim being what? The Arab nations, the Palestinians?
The Jewish people lived in the land of Israel. And we have a history of being murdered, killed, attacked in the land of Israel and above. But since King David's times, you'll never read about a history how Jewish people decided to attack non-Jews for no good reason. Never happened.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
Never happened. Look at the other direction, we have it every second day. The UN, for example, when it started in 1948, the UN gave the Jewish people. They said Israel doesn't belong to the Jewish people because the UN said so. Israel belongs to Jewish people because God says so in the Bible. But even from the UN's perspective, the Jewish people were given a sliver of the land of Israel, and the next day the Arab nations attacked them. Mm-hmm. Every major war since then, the Arab nations have attacked them. So to say that those who are attacking the Jews are the victims is just a complete distortion of the facts on the ground.
So Israel, Jews believe, is and understand is their rightful homeland, dating back to thousands of years ago. But was there a time that Jews really left Israel for the most part?
So Jews never left Israel. Jews were exiled from Israel.
Okay.
Jews never got up and said, we're leaving. Jews
Why
were
were they
exiled.
exiled? When did that happen?
Not good at dates, but you have the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians. The Jews were exiled then. The second temple was destroyed. Then the Jews came back 70 years later. 450 years later, the Jews were exiled from then, about 2,000 years ago, and were dispersed amongst the entire world. So since then, but there always has been a Jewish presence in Israel. I mean, to ask any archaeologist who's gone around Israel, Jews have been in Israel for thousands of years. There are no other nations that can say they've been in Israel for 3,000 years. There's no other nations that have a history. Most nations don't have a history of 3,000 years. So, the Jewish people the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people.
Was the biggest inflow of Jews to Israel after the Holocaust, though, or during the Holocaust?
After the Holocaust, after 1947, 1948, pretty much. Which no one talks about that. Jews were exiled from most of their Middle Eastern countries. After when in 1948, when the state of Israel was established, many of the Middle Eastern countries attacked their Jewish population. They didn't just leave because they were bored; they were left because they were an existential threat, under existential threat.
Mm-hmm. And Israel is like one of the few places in the world that you can go. I just watched a documentary the other day on this, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's like one of the few places you can go as a Jewish person and just feel totally you're safe. You're protected. You're the majority. Is that right? Like it is the Jewish state.
Yeah, it is. But you can feel Jewish and safe in many places. In the world.
Yeah.
I feel pretty Jewish and safe down here. No.
Yeah. Well, okay, but so it's interesting. And what do I know really? And if someone knows more than me on this, plenty of you do. Please leave something in the comments here. But it seems like from what I've read in the news, Jews, in their constant fighting with the surrounding Arab nations, because they're a dot in the sea of Arab nations, they'll send knock bombs when firing back at Arab nations that are bombs that kind of say that, hey, it doesn't kill anyone, it's just get out of the building, and then they'll destroy the building, which is a very humane and kind thing to do of the Jewish people, I guess. But it seems like if the Arab nations stopped fighting the Jews, stopped killing the Jews would be totally fine and say like, hey, thanks now, and we're not going to kill you.
There was a prime minister in Israel called Golda Meir, and she once said, she goes, if the Arabs laid down their weapons, there'd be peace.
Yes.
If the Jews laid down their weapons, there wouldn't be any Jews left.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. Yep. That's correct?
100%.
So is there any theological reason for Jews to dislike Jews to dislike Muslims or Christians, to dislike to kill them, I guess?
No, absolutely not. The only, as in the Jewish tradition, the only right you have to kill somebody is when they're coming to you to kill you. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And I know you don't know much about the other religions, but for Islam, is it theological for them to want or to desire to wipe out the Jewish race or the Jewish people?
So I haven't studied, as I said, Islam,
right.
But there is and again, maybe someone can correct me, but I do believe that Islam does believe that anybody who doesn't believe in Islam needs to be killed. Anybody who's a heretic needs to be killed. I do believe that it's a pretty common fact.
Teaching in the
could
Quran.
Be I'm wrong. I don't know if it's where it's a teaching, but it's a pretty concept that's brought, and it's mentioned all the time today. People don't. It's not something that people hide. People pretty clear about it. If you're a heretic, you deserve to die.
And what is a Zionist? Because I watched this documentary and they interviewed these Jewish people in Israel, and they were saying like we'd just love for the fighting to stop. We'd love to just be able to have our own little Israel. You can have all the rest of the land. And then they went and interviewed the Palestinians, which. Palestinians, what does that mean? Where is Palestine? That's not a part of Israel, is it? Or
so it's another interesting fact. Israel, before 1948, was called Palestine.
Okay.
The Jewish country was called Palestine. There was never a city. There was never, and that was actually given by the Romans a couple 100 or 1,000 years ago. The Palestinians today, who call themselves Palestinians, don't actually have any history of look for the history of the Palestinians. You won't find anything past 1970s. or something like that. So it's a very interesting concept how the world has just bought into this narrative about, so today there are certain territories which Israel conceded to them, to the people, and they call that Palestine today, but that's not the original Palestine, and that doesn't really, and even the name Palestinians doesn't really match if you look at the history and work it out behind that.
Okay, so I have a little.
But I'm not a big
map here.
expert in the politics.
But like, here's a map of Israel, and then some of it's green. That's Palestinian Authority. Is Palestinian Authority, is that just another word for Arab nation?
Well, Palestinian Authority was something which was started in the 1970s. They decided they were the spokesman for the Palestinian people, which since then has been contested back and forth. When Israel gave up some of its crucial land, which it had, so to speak, conquered when it was attacked, and that's what they call today modern day Palestine.
Okay, and is all that Jews want in Israel just the whole state of Israel? Is that what they want?
Well, it depends which Jew you'll talk to. I believe, according to Jewish Jewish law, the entire land of Israel belongs absolutely to the Jewish nation.
Okay.
I believe that not only was it given by God as a gift to the Jewish nation, but also for the security of the Jews, it has to remain that way. Even if it wasn't given to God by the Jewish people, which I believe it is, but even if it wasn't, from a pure security standpoint, for the safety of the Jewish people, it has to remain in Jewish hands, and I wish most politicians would follow that, but unfortunately, politics is politics.
Right. Well, very interesting. I think you cleared up a lot there, and at the very least, Israel should be a safe haven for Jews, is what Jews believe.
Absolutely.
Got it. Understood. Well, hey, I mean, we're getting towards the end of this whole thing. We've covered a lot. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I could talk for another hour easy, but out of respect for your time, we better go ahead and cut it off here. But I have one more question for you, and it might be a quicker answer, it might be a slower answer than I think. But Rabbi Chaim, what is the meaning of life?
Fulfilling for the purpose of what you were created.
Care to elaborate on that at all, or?
Each person has a purpose. Now, what that purpose is depends on where you are, what talents you have, and what audience you have to deal with. And you can see in the place you are and the personality traits you have, what you're good at. You can pretty much define from that what your purpose is. And to fulfill that purpose for the better of the world, to make the world a better place, a kinder place, a safer place, a holier place, a place with more of a godly conscience. Can't ask more than that.
Couldn't agree more. That's a great answer right there. And before we wrap things up, we haven't hardly plugged Chabad at ISU, but is there anything you'd like to say, or maybe some students will watch this episode? Anything you want to say before we wrap things up?
Yeah, Chabad at ISU and Bloomington Normal is a home for every Jew. Feel free to stop by, come visit us, check out our website, isuchabad.org. I think this is being aired after Passover, right?
Well, it depends. Whenever you maybe think the best time for it to air is, I'll probably air it. I'm thinking about getting off the strict Sunday only episode schedule, but we can discuss that.
Well, Passover starts on Friday night, the April 15th.
Okay.
And anybody who needs anything to do with Passover, need matzos or Seder, feel free to contact us. And actually, in Chabad, we're celebrating April 12th, which is Tuesday before Passover. We're celebrating the Rebbe's birthday. As I mentioned, it's the Rebbe's 120th birthday. And a righteous person, even after their physical life has ended, their life is, as you mentioned before, the life is very much still here, and they're very much alive. And the president of the United States and governor of Illinois, every year on the Rebbe's birthday, proclaim the day as a Sharing and Education Day, USA. Being, as we spoke about education before, and the Rebbe was a pioneer in education, dedicate this day to education and sharing. And here in Bloomington Normal, the mayor of Bloomington and the mayor of Normal both have declared April 12th as Sharing and Education Day USA in honor of the Rebbe's birthday. So that's a very auspicious and spiritual and holy day. If anybody needs anything for Passover, please feel free to reach out, isuchabad.org/Passover for all your Passover needs. And in general, for all your needs, we're happy to help.
Wonderful. Hey, it has been an absolute pleasure. And to everyone who's watching, thank you for watching and listening to The Paul Garcia Show. And if you find this episode delightful, please subscribe on YouTube, like my page on Facebook, and maybe even follow me on Instagram. But most importantly, share this episode with your friends and family. And if you'd like to support this show financially, consider making a one-time donation on Venmo to username The Paul Garcia Show. And if you'd like to support this show and gain exclusive early access to episodes like this one, become a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia. Until next Sunday, I'm your host, Paul Garcia. God bless and have a great week. And again, Rabbi, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. That's a wrap.